In this Photoshop tutorial, I'm going to be looking at using extra layers, texture layers, and blending modes to make an image look quite painterly and quite interesting, hopefully. I have a starting picture here of some clematis flowers that I just took from the garden. It's not a particularly great image. It has a rather distracting background and the lighting on the flowers is quite harsh. Therefore, I hope I can improve this by playing a little bit of Photoshop layer magic with it. I have two extra layers already open in Photoshop. One is a blue texture layer and one is a white texture layer. I'm going to add these and hopefully see how things work. So I'll start with my clematis, and the first thing I want to do is just add a copy layer and go layer, duplicate layer, and background copy, OK. And to this I want to add a certain amount of blur, so I'm just going to go filter and blur and Gaussian blur. I'm going to set this to around about 50 or just maybe 60, 70 pixels so I can get a really nice amount of blur going on, and then I can turn this down using the opacity slider on the layers panel to get the amount of blur that I want. And I think somewhere around maybe 50% gives it quite a dreamy looking, sort of old-fashioned portrait looking style of blur. So okay, I think that will be okay for now. So now I'm going to go to my blue texture and I'm going to, well, it's actually selected already, but if you want to select the whole thing, you click select and select all, and then edit and copy. And I go back to my clematis image and select edit and paste. Now it's telling me that I have a different color profile on this texture layer, and it's asking me if I'm okay with that, so I'm just going to click OK. You can see that this texture layer is slightly smaller than the original, so I'm just going to enlarge that by transforming it. So I'm going to go edit, transform and scale. That allows me to grab the corners and just make it the same size as my background image. Remember to click the tick button to finish off the transformation. Now I'm going to play around with the opacity of this layer again. See how it looks. I quite like a reasonable amount of colour coming through, so I'm going to leave it on around 60% opacity and then play with the blend modes. Now, I have had a little play with the blend modes on this, and I quite like this particular one set to the linear light mode. So I'm going to go down here and try linear light. And what I like about this particular blend mode is it gives me a really nice rich blue. So now I'm going to go to my other texture layer, the white one. I'm going to click on that and select all. And then I'm going to go edit and copy, and then go back to my flower background layer and click edit and paste. Again, it's asking me if I mind that it's a different working profile, but I'm just going to say OK to that. So we have to transform this one too, so go edit, transform, scale, and grab the corner up to make it match the size. Grab the bottom corner and then click tick to finish the transformation. So again, I'm going to look at how much opacity I want this with this white layer. I'm going to just have, I think we're going to have this in quite a bit lower, I think, than the other one. So maybe around 25–30%. And then I'm going to select the blend modes, and I think with this particular one, I quite liked it on lighten. So you can see if you toggle the visibility that gives me quite a nice sort of glow to it, and I might just turn that down slightly, a little bit more. Thought it was a little bit bright with that lighten mode, so the opacity is now on about 18%. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that now, so the only thing I'd like to do to finish off would be to perhaps use a little vignette around the whole thing. And I quite like to use the Camera Raw filter for vignettes. And to allow me to use a filter on the top of the whole the layer stack that I have here, I need to do a stamp visible layer, which allows me to use a filter over the top of the whole thing, and it will apply the filter to everything. So to do stamp visible, I go to layer and down to merge visible, and then click Alt on the keyboard and click merge visible. And you'll see you get a new layer 3, it says up here, which has the whole of the effects that you've just been doing with the layers. So I'm going to go now to filter and Camera Raw filter, and I'm going to go to effects and add some post-crop vignetting. So again, I can add quite a lot of vignetting on here and click OK. And I can choose how much of that I actually want on the final image by going to the opacity slider again and playing around with that. Okay, so basically I've used 2 texture layers and a background copy with a Gaussian blur and a final stamp visible layer to add some vignetting.